Turn up the screen.
I want to thank you all for being here, both in person and in line, or online. I heard my y'all. Must be Riley
Hey.
wiping off on me, getting some of my southern.
The southern.
All right. With that being said, tonight's talk is sympathetic versus parasympathetic. We're going to go into what these are. Most people know a general idea, but we're going to go into what they actually are, how they affect the brain, what brain waves are associated with each one of them. And then you'll be able to understand when your body is stressed out, these are the things that show up. When your body is relaxed, these are the other things that show up. And then you'll be able to, we're going to do a little story explaining different aspects of what happens. With that being said, please come with an open heart and an open mind. I always say this because my hope and my prayer is that when we do these talks, we learn how to help a friend, a family member, somebody outside of us. I know we're going to learn something to help you, whoever's listening to me. But who can we spread that information to? Who can we help that doesn't know this yet? Who can we help that is in a lost place? Who can we help that has given up? Who can we help that has been told you won't get better? This is just the way it is. You're just going to have to learn to live with it. Who can we help? Who are those people? And that's why we really do these workshops, is to help the people that don't know what to do, that don't know where to go, and have lost faith in their body's ability to heal themselves. So with that being said, do we know or have we heard of parasympathetic and sympathetic before? Have any of us heard of this before? Yes, in the back row, CA named Brooke. What is sympathetic?
You have to remind me.
Oh, what is it? You have to remind me is the answer. For those who are not aware, she is blushing at this very moment and giggling. So that is going to be an indication of that sympathetic response. So we're going to see changes in blood flow. We're going to see changes in how our body responds. What we need to understand is when I talk about sympathetic, this is the medical term for fight, flight, and freeze. And I want you to understand the freeze is actually the worst. But it's fight and flight. So when we look at the brain, and if we look at it from the side, the first thing that we're born with is brain stem. When we're born, have we all heard about or seen those things, the fontanelles, the soft spots on the head of the baby, where you can literally touch the brain, but there's not really brain there? So that's what I need you to understand is when a baby is born, there is no frontal lobe, there's no brain in the front. That's why their head can literally compress and then come back out. That's why those soft spots are there, so that the head can literally compress, and then when you're born, it comes back out and it starts the cerebral spinal fluid from moving up and down the spinal cord to make the nutrients go into the brain. So when the baby's born, there is no brain, there's just brainstem. So this is why baby is not rational. When you talk to baby, baby doesn't understand you because there is no frontal lobe. There is no temporal lobe. There is nothing for them to use. They're just going to react. Let me take that back. There's no frontal lobe. They will have minor temporal lobe. So then what you're going to see is as baby develops and their brain starts growing, and this is why they sleep so much and they eat so much, is literally they're growing their brain. They're growing body, but they're growing brain more than body. And the important thing for us to understand is brain tells body what to do. Brain is literally the control center hub of everything that happens in your body. If brain is working correctly, it will go down the nerve system, which is going to be my arm, and then out like a tree and grow the rest of your body. So brain makes nerves go out, and whatever's at the end of the nerve, that's what you grow, which will be organs, muscles, glands. And when that works correctly, you actually heal. And if it doesn't, you get sick. So brain first is brainstem, and then we grow like we always talk about. We grow from the bottom to the top, back to front, right to left, and then inside out like a flower, opening up. So the newest part of your brain is also the part of the brain that can be most easily affected. Let's put it a different way. The most easily damaged part of your brain is the newest part of your brain. And the newest part of your brain, or the most easily damaged part of the brain, is what gives you your personality, is what gives you your ability to cognitively think. So that's why if we have something crazy happen, like I'm driving along, stop, boom, goom, goom, and you get a concussion, that new part of your brain is what's damaged. That can cause major issues. Because now, and when I say new, I mean the outside. Old is in the middle, new is on the outside. So literally as it grows out, the part of your brain closest to your skull is the newest part of your brain. Now how the brain works is the newest part controls the older parts. So it's based on a hierarchy. The newer the part of the brain is, or the more higher in function it is, the more it can control. So the prefrontal cortex and the frontal cortex can literally control everything else if you're really, really good at taking time to control things. So an example of this, Guinness Book of World Records. We used to have this TV show called Guinness Book of World Records. And literally, there was a fellow who had meditated all the time. And he could change his blood pressure to different parts of his hands. So his one hand could have a heart rate and blood pressure. Well, the heart rate is what they measured. I'm assuming blood pressure because of what he did. He could drop the heart rate on one hand. So he literally learned how to constrict the blood vessels so less blood would go into his hand. And his hand would constrict. And I'll tell you how this works once we get through it. And less blood would go into it. So what's a symptom of that? Cold hands, cold feet. That's a symptom of less blood flow going in there. And they can turn white and blue. But then his other hand was running a heart rate of, I think it was like 80 on one side and 15 on the other. This is what got really crazy. Because then the guy took a stake and literally put it through his hand and it didn't bleed. But he had no blood pressure, blood flow going into it. And what I'm showing you here is that if you have that frontal lobe working really well and put a lot of time, this is like hundreds and thousands of hours learning how to control blood flow, you can do it. Do most people want to spend all their life learning how to make one hand cold and one hand warm? Probably not. It's not. It is an interesting thing to do, but the productivity and long term of life is not really that big of a thing. But what he's actually learning how to do is to turn on the stress response on half of his body. So when he's stressed, the blood vessels actually constrict. An example of this in an extreme form is called Raynaud's syndrome. Raynaud's syndrome, Rynards, I believe, is when when you get stressed out, your hands lose blood flow so much that they turn red, white, and then blue. Red, they get flushed. White, blood flow goes away, and then blue, less blood flow. If you have it bad enough, the tissue will actually start dying if you have that problem. So go back to this. What happens when you are stressed out? So when you're stressed out, you will actually stop blood from going to certain areas. These are areas that we measure on you to see how stressed you are. What are areas that you take blood away from? Your hands, your feet, your digestive system, and most important, your frontal lobe. The frontal lobe is the newest part of the brain. So if you are stressed out long enough, your frontal lobe will literally start to deteriorate and you can get anxiety and depression and sleep issues and all these other issues that we see people commonly having. Because blood flow will change. So you go, well, how do I know if I'm stressed out, doc? Well, if you shaking that person's hand and it's cold and clammy, that person's stressed out. Therefore, they are not going to be able to think correctly. Stressed out? Yeah, not the best time to probably ask this person to make a decision that could change their life. If they're warm, they're going to be able to be rational. Because remember I said when you're stressed out, the blood goes away from here. Well, that's rational. Frontal lobe, and it'll go to brainstem, which is irrational. That's baby. So think about baby brain. This is 0 to 2 years of age. What does it take to get a baby to cry? Almost anything. That's called irrational. But we're used to it. The thing is, with an adult, if you stress them out enough, they get baby brain, which is anger, which is operating out of that lower brainstem area. So fight or flight is brainstem operation. It means frontal lobe has turned off. You have turned off. You have deactivated. You have taken the force away. No frontal lobe is working. We need the frontal lobe for us to be healthy. So we're stressed out. We take blood flow away from where? From our frontal lobe. How are our hands going to be? Are they going to be warm or cold? Cold. How about our feet? How about our bowels?
Not working.
Not working. How about our muscles? Ooh, the answer is strong.
Oh.
So where do we move the blood? We move it to places to fight. So where do we need the blood? Muscles, heart, and lungs. So we drive all the energy into fight. So we don't need to do very dedicated calculus equations. We don't need to do fine motor movements. We don't need to digest any of our food because we could be eaten. So we move all the blood away from our organs, hands and feet, and move it to big muscles and brainstem. So if you are a smaller person or a normal sized person or a bigger person, but you are abnormally strong for your size, that tells me you are stuck in fight or flight. And you are burning yourself out. And that's why it's harder for you to learn certain things. That's why it's harder for you to remember certain things. That's why you may have the bowel issues, the digestive issues, the chronically cold hands and feet. This is just telling us how stressed you are because you're not putting blood into the frontal lobe. So what is the experience that people have when they're in fight or flight and we adjust them? Remember, less blood is going to their frontal lobe. So we adjust them and then boom, their face gets really bright red. What has happened? We have taken them out of fight or flight. We've actually stimulated the frontal lobe to turn off the brainstem fight or flight response, and then blood will actually shoot into their brain. And that's that blood flow, whoa, what just happened feeling. That's the adjustment, putting them in parasympathetic or relaxed state. Now, you can't be purely parasympathetic or purely sympathetic. So parasympathetic is relaxed, feed, breathe, heal. Sympathetic is stress, fight, flight, freeze. You can't be in one or the other. You're always in percentages, but you want to be the majority of the day, you want to be more parasympathetic or relaxed dominant than sympathetic dominant. So if you're an example, if your hands are always 80 degrees, we're chronically stressed. If your hands are at 95 majority of the time, and then you get stressed out and they drop down because you go into fight or flight, and then they get warm again, that's healthy. But if they're always cold, that means you're stressed out and you're growing sickness. Is this making sense? So this is why we as a culture shake people's hands. We actually know how stressed they are. We didn't know that's what we were doing, but hey, nice to meet you. Oh, you're sweaty and cold? There's something wrong with that guy. We just all know that, but it's literally telling me that person's stressed out. Now, the one thing you need to understand is, in general, sympathetic or stress response is not where we want to live, except for one crucial, very important time in your life. And that is when you have a bacterial or viral or parasympathetic or parasitic infection. When you have these things, fight or flight needs to be turned on because it pushes up your immune system response. So think about what happens when you get sick. Cold hands, cold feet, you get the shivers, and that's your body trying to literally drive the temperature up to make you kill off the bacteria or virus faster. Your hands will be really, really cold. This is also why when you're chronically stressed out and you're sick, what do we love? Do we love a hot rag on our head or a cool rag on our face?
I would say cool.
Cool rag, right? Everybody loves the cool rag. Why the cool rag? The cool rag stimulates the parasympathetic. You've all heard of cool plunges, stimulates the vagus nerve. The cool rag does the same thing. I'm so stressed. I just need, everything hurts. Just make it stop for a little bit. Cool rag on face, everything calms down, and you apply the brake to the sympathetic for a little bit, so then you have time to speed it back up again. So, FYI, if you want to stimulate the vagus, the easiest way is that device that we have people clip in their ears, but a cold shower, and all you have to do is really the face, you will get the same health benefits as jumping in a ice cold tub. So you don't have to completely immerse yourself to get the same health benefits if it's neurological. If it's inflammatory and muscle and other things you're looking at, you may want to do that. But if we're looking at purely neurological relaxation, cold shower on the face, ice water on face will get the same response. Because you're actually stimulating that relaxation nerve, the vagus, the parasympathetic. So we talked about this, and we talked about all of one of the 12 things that I have here. So we talked about how stressed we are when our hands and feet get cold. What's another way for us to tell how stressed we are? We talk sweaty hands, but the one that everybody loves for me to talk about is how big their pupils are. Your pupil size tells me how stressed you are. You notice when you came in, I'm like, you have a 2 pupil size, you have a 10 pupil size, you have a 3, whatever number I told you, that tells me how stressed you are and which side of your brain is stressed. So if your pupils are really, and they fluctuate, because this will literally change based on how stressed you are. So let's take an example here. I'll give you the answer and then we'll look at the example. Oh no, I'll give you the example. Let's say we just experienced a car accident. What happens when you experience that car accident? Our hands will get sweaty. Our heart rate will go up. Are we going to breathe faster or slower?
Faster.
Faster, right? Are we going to have tighter or more relaxed muscles?
Tighter.
Tighter muscles. Are we going to have more blood going to our brain or less blood going to our brain? Less blood going to your brain. Good, we're listening. Are we going to be able to make wise decisions right after or not? So if you get in a car accident, never talk to the insurance company right away. Give yourself a little time to figure out what's going on, because you will not be making wise decisions because your brain is not going to work. You can phone the cops, but you don't say, yeah, I'll just close the deal right away. No, give me time to figure out what's going on, how much has happened. The other thing that's going to happen is our eyes are going to get bigger to let more light in, because we're in fight, flight, or freeze. And we're also going to become more sound sensitive. Sound sensitivity comes from brainstem. So when we have patients who come in and they are light sensitive and sound sensitive, what they are telling us neurologically is, I'm stuck in fight or flight to the point where I'm operating out of baby brain. Do not expect me to be normal. I'm literally operating at reactive. There is no gray area. They're in reactive brain inflammation state. That's what they're telling us. So if you have a friend who's really sound sensitive, that's red flag, reactive person. Light sensitive, another red flag, stressed out person. So when we look at the pupils, they tell us how stressed you are. That is directly correlated to how much stress and relaxation is going on. A baby is running in the brainstem. If the brainstem is stress, and that literally makes you go into a fight or flight response, and stress is big, are the baby's eyes going to be big or small? Their pupils.
Didn't say-
Just think about what they are. Usually they're big, right?
Right.
They're huge because they're in the reactive brainstem state. That's why they cry about everything. Their coping mechanism is cry or smile. There's nothing else. So pupil size tells me how stressed, parasympathetic, or parasympathetic relaxed you are. If your pupils are, for anybody under the age of 65, we want them to be at a 3. Anybody over the age of 65, we want them to be at a 2. How the body works is when you're born, you're more stressed, and as you age, you become more relaxed. So what do we see in general public? Who makes the not so smart choices? Young people or older people? In general, younger, right? That's because they're more sympathetic driven, more stress driven, and their brain is not fully matured until about 25 to 27 years of age. So that's why you shouldn't take drugs, shouldn't do alcohol, shouldn't do all that stuff when you're growing, because your brain isn't growing yet. It's not done growing yet.
Or get engaged either.
Or get engaged from the peanut gallery. I'm not going to put yes or no's on that. Too charged. But I'm sure there's some sympathetic drivers of that. So if your eyes are small, it tells me you're relaxed. If your pupils are big, it tells me you're stressed. But they fluctuate by seconds. So all it would take is me saying something offensive to somebody and your pupils would dilate right away. Now this is where it gets fun. If you want to know how sympathetic, stressed, or relaxed they are, look and see if the eyes match. If one is bigger than the other, and the more they're off, the bigger the problem that person has. They could have a neurological impingement or nerve palsy issue. That's not usually what happens. You would know that because one would be really big, one small, and one really big. But if you see them moving, it's telling us how stressed out their brain is. So the right side of the brain is the emotional side of the brain. The left side of the brain is the logical side of the brain. So if the right pupil is big, it means they're in an emotionally charged state. Does that mean good or bad? Nope, it just means emotionally charged. Now, if you are talking to them about something and their pupil gets bigger on the right, then you know you are emotionally charging them up. Does that mean they could yell at you? Yes. Does that mean stuff could happen? Yes. But it's telling you what's going on. What if the left eye gets big? That's cognitive. So if the left eye gets really big, that tells me they're in a cognitive stressed out state. They're trying to figure out what's going on. If both eyes are big, they're stressed. But you can see this. It can fluctuate where you'll see one is like a 4 and the other's an 8. And if it's like I'm showing you right now with the left side, that person's trying to figure out everything I'm saying. It doesn't necessarily mean it's bad or not bad, but the takeaway is if you're doing that, slow down. You're talking too fast. If the right side is really, really big, maybe stop talking about the person's mother or whatever you're talking about or whatever's triggering them. Does that make sense? Because now you know who you're talking to. The break, the parasympathetic, is the vagus. Have I talked to you about vagus before?
Yes.
Do we know what the vagus nerve is? So it is cranial number 10, but I don't know if you know this. The vagus is known as the great wanderer. And you go, why is that? It's because it's the only nerve that starts in the brainstem and then connects to every single organ except for the bladder and the prostate and uterus. No, it goes to the uterus and just the bladder. So literally, it goes and wanders down. It goes through the diaphragm. It goes, that's the muscle that you breathe with. It goes to the liver and the heart and the kidneys and the gallbladder and the large intestine and the small intestine. So this is, remember how I said it goes through the diaphragm? So if you rub on a nerve, it will actually stimulate it. So if you breathe the right way, you can actually pull on the vagus and stimulate it. Guess what kind of breathing does that? Diaphragm breathing. It actually stretches and pulls on the vagus nerve, which stimulates it, which makes you feel calm. So the takeaway I want you to have is a couple true things you can see. Cold hands, cold feet, pupil size. Now you know what that person's dealing with. Cognitive stress, emotional stress, and it has nothing to do with how they feel. Many people, if not 90% or more of the people that come in here, say they have a symptom, but they don't even know how bad they are. We'll see quite a lot of people come in and their eyes are completely dilated and, well, I'm a little light sensitive to light, but isn't everybody? No. Well, sounds kind of annoying me, but isn't everybody? No. They're not even aware. It's just they've been in it for so long, they don't even know that it's what's making them sick. So what we want to do is be able to recognize this in our friends and family and then be able to try to help them. If it's more than taking them for a walk, listening to what they're saying, maybe get them to come in and get an exam to see what we could do to help them if they have a major issue. But understanding you shake somebody's hand, the best thing you can, and it's cold, the best thing you can probably do is just listen to them. And understand this. I heard this from, I forget what it was, a podcast or something. Every mule believes their weight or their toe is the heaviest. So what that means is everybody believes their life is the hardest. So if we take that for what it is, nobody can understand, but the truth is we can all understand. We can all understand that we've had issues. We can all understand. So if you meet that person and their pupils are big, and you shake their hand and it's cold, maybe just go, hey, what's going on? What are you thinking about? What are you working on? And you'll get unless it's a close friend, you might get everything's good and be like, yeah, but I know you're not because your pupils are big and you can't lie with your pupils. I know you're not because your hands are sweaty and you can't lie with your hands. So you can actually connect with the person and let them know, we know you're stressed. Stress is what causes disease. We know that it causes heart disease and cancer. The research is out. It's not a question anymore. Do you need to hear somebody? Do you need to get checked? What do you need to do? If you're at the end of your rope and you don't know what to do, I got a guy you can check out. If it's not that, you just need to talk to me for 10 minutes. And the truth is, 99% of the time, the people just need to be listened to. And it will help them get better. Because nobody listens anymore. The computer doesn't count because you don't actually feel connected to the computer when it's talking to you. Asking ChatGPT for the answer doesn't count. But think of your friend or family member who thinks they're fine. Now you have a couple tools to go, but your hands are cold. But your hands are sweaty. That tells me you're stressed. But your pupils are big. That tells me you're stressed.
That be with your nose too?
Yeah, if your nose is cold, you're stressed. If your forehead is cold, you're stressed. These are all just indicators of how stressed you are. The more flags you have for stress, the sicker you will be. The more flags you have for relaxation, the healthier you will be. What are the flags of relaxation? Warm hands, not sweaty hands. Warm feet, not sweaty feet. Enough blood going to your brain, proper heart rate, proper blood pressure. These are all markers. Muscle tone normal, respiration rate normal. The more of these that are normal, the healthier you are. If you are somebody who has a problem, there will always be an underlying marker that indicates where that's coming from. So what I want to say is, if you have a friend or family member you see, we still have 2 days left for our Patient Appreciation Week. We got tomorrow and Thursday. They still can come in if you get them to give us a ring and get that exam at that discounted fee, that $20. And that's that full test. That's that EEG, neurodevelopmental test. But think of who doesn't even know they're stressed. Think of who has those chronically sweaty hands, those big eyes, and that's telling you who needs help. They're literally telling you I need help and they don't even know. So think of those people. Take a chance to help change that person's life. I want to thank you guys for being here. Have a good night.
Make a doc.